Welcome to today's talk session. My name is Deidre Moss, and I'm the host of Can We Talk. I'm an educator, motivator, and a talk connoisseur. Today in our session, I am so excited to welcome Dr. Darlington Akaiso, my mentor. Yes, it's you,
Thank you.
Dr. Akaiso. So among many things, he is an author, researcher, and so many other educator. You wear so many hats. And so at this time, I would like to pass the virtual mic to him so that he can introduce himself.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Deidre. Thanks for having me. My name is Darlington Akaiso. I am an adjunct professor with the Northeastern University. It has branches in Boston, has branches also in Toronto, Canada. And I am also an adjunct professor at the University of West Indies. Aside from academic work, I also do some work on the industry practice side. And I do manage risk. I manage business continuity, resiliency planning, and things of that nature that's on the corporate side of things. So like you said, I do wear different hats. I'm also a coach. I am also a mentor, like you've rightly said. So, but again, I just want to focus on the academic side of things today. I'm originally from Nigeria in West Africa. And I also hold nationalities in other countries as well. But I try to stay on the Nigerian side of things. So I started writing a long time ago, but most of the work I had done were private. They were not made public, maybe as a result of not knowing the channels to follow. But over the years, especially in much more recent times, people have started taking interest in the subjects I have discussed in my writings, and they've decided to publicize it. So I actually have done work with so many other universities outside of the University of West Indies and the Northeastern University. I have worked with the University of Manitoba in Canada. I have worked at Seneca College in Ontario, Canada. I have also taught at Trent University in Peterborough in Canada, and other institutions which I just can't remember. Because some of them invite me to come speak, and some of them also request that I develop curriculum for them. So I have done work in these areas as well. Like I did mention, when it comes to industry practice, I am an expert in disaster risk reduction, risk management, business continuity planning, and I have worked with so many institutions. I've worked with multinational institutions and global developmental agencies across the globe. In fact, I have had the opportunity of working in every continent of the world. And that's a humongous scope when it comes to your work capacity, but I have actually done it. How? I don't know. So from a background standpoint, I hold a bachelor's degree in information systems technology, and my minor was in health informatics. I then pursued a master's degree in management information systems at the University of Illinois at Springfield. Then I moved from there to do a doctorate program at Franklin Pierce University in New Hampshire. I have also done some certifications at Harvard University and also at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. When it comes to industry practice, I hold multiple certifications in almost every area of operational resiliency planning. So that's going to be a lot for me to mention. But again, I'm happy for the opportunity you've given me to bring me on your platform, and I'm all yours today.
Awesome. I was behind you a little while, and I had to bring you on because you are responsible. I mean, you you definitely are someone who I consider my mentor, and you kind of helped me to really put myself out there. So I want to thank you for that. And I had to bring you on because, like I said, I mean, I don't think I would have been doing what I do if you didn't push me to do it. So you are definitely one of my mentors. You stay busy, but I'm grateful that you found the time today to be a part of this session. So what we're going to talk about a little bit, we're going to talk about your books, but we're also going to talk a little bit about development, nation building, national development, because that is a component of a lot of the things that you talk about. And I know you told us a little bit about your background, and you spoke so passionately. So I wanted to know what motivates and inspires you.
Thanks very much, Idre. Very simply put out, staying positive is what motivates me. If you look at my background, I grew up in a country that almost every day you hear conflicts. We see conflicts, we live conflicts. So staying positive is what really motivates me, because I kept telling myself, even when I was really young, I said, no, I do see the greener side of things. I do see peace and tranquility at the end of the tunnel. I do see light right there. So staying positive is what motivates me, and it's actually what has brought me this far.
That's powerful. You mentioned that you come from a country where there's conflict and, may I say, a little bit of civil unrest.
Absolutely. Most of what happens in that part of the world, you may not hear them on CNN, but then we pay attention to what happens, and we see those things and we hear those things. So if you were to calculate, conflict could be recorded almost every 10 minutes, whether it's within a small sphere of a tribe, whether it's within a small sphere of the countryside of a village. But then, no matter how you measure it, we see and we live conflicts in Nigeria.
Oh, wow. That's powerful. And so no doubt, I think that may have had an impact on your writings.
Absolutely.
And so I want to talk about your books. When you talk about the environment and the conflict, in that you experience in your country. Can you tell us about the books you've written and the significance and meaning behind those books?
Sure. Thanks very much, Idri. I have written a couple of books, but the ones I'm going to talk about are actually the ones that are out there, made public. Some of them have not been as publicized as others. So I'm going to pick on about 4 or 5 books. So if you go on Amazon.com and you type in my name, Dr. Darlington Akaiso, a lot of books will pop out. So the recentest one is the one I'm actually putting on display. I don't know whether you can see this one. So this is a very interesting one. It's called Old School Boys, right? The Insights of Political Gaming. This is very interesting. And I'll tell you, writing this book, I took it out of the game of soccer because I do play soccer and I like soccer, right? So if you look at the formation, when it comes to those that play soccer, you have 10 players and you have the 11th player who's the goalkeeper. So most times when the formation is put together, the goalkeeper is not involved. And you could even see from the jerseys they wear. They have numbers, and those numbers, one follows the other sometimes. But looking at the goalkeeper's number may be totally different from the rest of the team. And sometimes you see them wearing a uniform or jerseys that have pretty much the same color, but the goalkeeper has a different color. So I kept asking myself, why is it one person doesn't play by the rule? So that's what really inspired the writing of this book, right? We have the whole country, right, following a certain path of which we have laws to govern us so that it puts us on that path. But we have people that refuse and do not follow that path. So those are the folks I'm talking about. So I call them old school boys. So this is about people who feel they are people who feel they can't be punished, right? They feel they're above the law, and that should not be. So we have lots of open cases in the country I come from, in Nigeria. We have politicians, we have bankers who've actually stolen a lot of money, and this is in the open, but then nothing is done to them. So pretty much I'm asking myself, we grew up hearing this, we grew up seeing this, so what is next? Nothing has been done to them. And I can give you some instance. We have a case where the newspapers, the dailies, had actually carried that a huge amount of money, about 70 million naira, was actually swallowed up by snakes and swallowed up by monkeys. And that was that. So, strange things are reported, strange things happen, but no one is held accountable. So in this writing, what I tried to do was to ask questions, sort of, questions like, in all of these things done, why are these people going unpunished? Will there ever be punishment for them? Right? So these questions are things of which this book actually unveils. And the book actually goes on a step-by-step basis. It picks the characters, and it also picks what they were accused of. And it also picks the sentencing, of which they never had, right? So this book talks about the resources we have within within Nigeria as a country, and how these resources has been so plundered. It's been distributed amongst a selected few. This shouldn't be happening, especially in a country that's so blessed intellectually, such as Nigeria. So that is the basis upon which this book thrives. So that's book number one. And I'm also going to quickly talk about another book. And this is one of the very interesting reads I have. It's called Farming with Guns. A few years ago, I traveled back to Nigeria, and because I live in North America. So going back to Nigeria, I actually saw cattle farmers. So these are folks that take their cattle, their cows to the farm, right? So the cattle could graze on the field. But what I saw was that these cattle rearers no longer go with sticks. They no longer go with the bags, which normally they have these bags, and the bags contains some food to sustain them over the period they'll be going to distant places with these cattle. They no longer go with that. They go with guns. And I started asking myself, why are you rearing cattle with guns? So that's where I drew inspiration to bring the title of this book out, to say, why are they farming with guns? Right? But when you look at this, it's deeply rooted. In Nigeria, we have Christians and we have Muslims. And you could, and this has happened so much, over the past years, where you see Christian churches being burnt down, where you see Christians being killed in broad daylight. So that made me begin to ponder, and I was asking myself, why are Christians being targets of another tribe? Why are these guys killing Christians? So I decided to investigate, and in the course of that, decided to write this book, because I was wondering what will motivate a certain tribe in Nigeria to go farming with guns. You're supposed to farm with machetes. You're supposed to farm with hoes, with shovels. You're supposed to farm with farming tools, not with guns. But if you're going to farm with guns such as AK-40s, sophisticated guns, then there is more to farming than what you're presenting. So those are the kind of things which, when I wrote this book, I wanted to unveil. And this is actually an outcome of a book I had written before, which maybe we'll not get the time to go into today, but this is the second book, and it's a very interesting read. I also do have another book, which a lot of people really, really like. And that's this book. It's called Project Management and Politics. Just so you know, I teach project management a lot. And what I found out was that there is this tension when it comes to politics and project management, which is why I decided to subtitle the book saying that they were embarking on a dangerous critical path. So again, back to the country I come from, and this is not just about Nigeria. This is something which is synonymous with almost every African country.
Absolutely.
So what happens is that we do have projects, very projects which are geared towards making life better for the citizens. But then all we hear is that the contracts are awarded, and that's the end of what we see. And so what happens after then, we don't know, right? And that should not be the case. So we have leaders elected into power. They prioritize policies, they prioritize projects and programs, but this is not for the benefit of the people. This is for their personal benefit. So this could be really frustrating, especially when you're looking at a country with close to 200 million people. So what happened in this book was I decided to go from state to state in my country, about 36 states. I decided to go from state to state to look at the projects that were publicized by the leaders of the state, the governors, and all of those projects have been paid for. So on record, it shows or it says the projects have been completed. But in reality, it hasn't been. So this book actually unveils those abandoned projects of which to the citizens, you've told them that it's all done, it's beautiful, and you've settled the contractors. But in actual sense, those projects have been abandoned. And in fact, some have not even been started. But on paper, it's been started, it's been planned, it's been initiated, it's been implemented, it's been concluded, it's been closed down. That should not be the case. So this is a book of which so many people are very interested in. In fact, I get calls from the extremes of Africa requesting for this book. So this is a very good read as well. Another book I'm going to talk about is this one, which is Proverbial Leadership. And this is actually very interesting because my late father actually used to tell me so many things, which laid the foundation, for writing this book. So in today's world, you will hear people talking about leadership. Everything is about leadership, but I don't see the relationship they make when it comes to leadership and wisdom. Because from my perspective, the two are very related. There is a symbiotic relationship between leadership and wisdom. So when you look at my book, Proverbial Leadership, it tries to bring, to put that connection together, right, between wisdom and leadership. Because one is actually the raw material for the other. When there is wisdom, then you can lead, right? So this is very different from what we see in today's world. People actually move to different styles of leadership, right? You see people sort of, and I call it, from my perspective, I call it applied leadership. They sort of try to apply leadership to suit whatsoever they want to do, and they forget the wisdom, the core part of leadership. That should not be the case. In my own world, I look at wisdom being drawn from nature. And this can help guide the leadership models which we have naturally, right? But in today's world, the emphasis has constantly been shifted away from wisdom, which, like I have said, is the essential ingredient of leadership, right? So we have all of these new emerging styles and forms of which people want to lead today, of which people want to talk about leadership today. And this is not very oriented, right? This is not well put together. People talk about leadership emphasizing on monetary gains, right? And they emphasize on this over the basic needs of their followers. They look at leadership as a tool, as a business support tool. And that should not be the case, because when you look at it as a business support tool, you're looking at it in terms of how much profit am I making? That should not be the case, which is what this book is actually talking about. We should look at leadership from the place of wisdom, from what nature has actually prepared for us. That way we could grow outwards from there, right? So look at the proverbs we had, growing up. It's not just in Africa. We have proverbs in every country in the world. We have Chinese proverbs. So these proverbs actually provides guidance. These proverbs provide us with expressed ideas of which can actually guide the things you do, right? So this reflects lots of wisdom. So what I was trying to say is, why don't we use what is already available to us and then begin to build from there? Because this is very flexible, right? So Proverbs are a storehouse of wisdom. And there's so much truth when it comes to proverbial sayings. We don't need to debate about that. So Proverbs have this depth of moral concern, right? Which actually pushes away things like indiscipline and things of that nature. Proverbs actually helps us to form the norms and the ethics of social construct. But those are the things of which the society shine away from and which should not be the case. I could keep going if you allow me, but that is the basis upon which this book is founded. I'm just going to talk about these books for now, but in case you want to read more about my writings, all you need to do is go on Amazon.com and type in Dr. Darlington Akaiso.
And you've written so many books, and it's so profound. Actually, these are profound writings. And you mentioned the first one, and you talk about in your country, you talk about in Africa, but this is worldwide. And you talk about the fact that you have people who feel as though they can engage in activities and there's no recourse. There's no recourse for their actions. And it becomes so blatant in the activities that they become so comfortable. And because they're so used to not being held responsible or not having any accountability for the things that they do, they're brazen in their activities. And so you have a lot of profound writings. I found that so profound, and it's the same. It's the same where I live. People engage in activities and they're so comfortable in the things that they do because they feel as though I'm not going to be held accountable for what I'm doing. So I can behave as I wish. I can do whatever I want to do. And it's very sad. And you also talk about farming with guns, and it's important that you saw these farmers, and we know what the farming tools are. We know what the persons need to farm. So why are you farming with guns? And so that's a very interesting question. That's a very interesting question. And then you also talk about project management and politics and the kind of interconnectivity between the two. And same thing here with leadership, proverbial leadership, and operating in wisdom and understanding that you're governing a people. And so you shouldn't just be guided by how you feel and what you think is right, but actually governing with wisdom. And so those are some very profound writings that you have. And I just want to reiterate the fact that it's not just something that you would have mentioned in your country, but this is straight across the board. We have these issues straight across the board. And I'm so glad that in your writings, you bring awareness and you bring attention to these issues, because these are the things that we need to talk about. We need to talk about these things. These are important. And in building a community and building a society, these are the building blocks. Leadership is a building block. You need people in place who are going to govern the people accordingly and not just operate in their own wisdom, not just operate on what they think should happen, but actually governing a country effectively in wisdom. That's a building block. So a lot of the things that you mentioned, these are building blocks. And it's sad that, people aren't taking these things into consideration. I don't know if you would like to add anything.
Thanks very much, Deidre. Honestly, these are things that really get to me. I feel very sad when I have to think of this.
I can see your passion. I definitely can see your passion.
Honestly, these are things that has transcended over time. You would think things would improve over time, but it hasn't. So the little contribution I feel I can make is to talk about it.
Yes.
And I'm very grateful for people like you, especially using such a platform as this, so that the message could be broadcasted and rebroadcasted. We're tired of this. It should not be. Being silent doesn't mean we're accepting of that.
Exactly.
So, which is why I really have to applaud you for giving me this opportunity.
Well, thank you. And thank you for being a part of it. I know you're busy, but the platform is about talking about those things that matter. We could all do entertainment and it's good to have a laugh every now and then, but are we really solving the issues that are impacting our community? And I know we're just talking about it. People say, oh, you're just talking, but talking leads to action. And before you can get anything done, you actually have to meet, you actually have to have all your stakeholders in place to be able to have a discussion about how you're going to approach an issue. And so talking and bringing awareness to these things really matters. And so I want to thank you. I want to thank you for sharing and writing about these things. These things are very important, and we need to talk about them. We need to bring attention to these things that matter. We need to talk about leadership. We need to talk about national development. We need to talk about those persons who are in power. And you talk about the distribution of wealth. Are we distributing wealth equally? We come from places of wealth. These are wealthy nations. Why do we have this contrast in those who are extremely wealthy and those who are extremely poor?
True.
Why aren't we talking about these things? Or are we going to continue to just focus on entertainment and getting a laugh at the end of the day? Is that helping us go forward? Are we making progress?
Not at all.
So these are the things that I think we need to talk about, especially in our communities. And it's straight across the board. It's not just prevalent in your country, it's prevalent straight across the board. Yeah. We in the far-flung islands of the Caribbean, we are impacted by these issues. Totally. And unless we talk about them and address them, we're not going to make any progress. We're going to be in circles.
Very true.
In the same circle over and over again.
Very true. I totally relate with what you're saying, and I totally agree with you.
So I want to ask you, what impact do you believe, or what do you desire? What impact do you want these writings to make, your books and, all the things that you do? I know you've impacted me, but what impact do you want these books to make?
Thanks very much, Deidre. Very, very good question you've asked. In fact, if you look at my style of writing, I am a transformational author. I don't jump into writing about, writing on different subjects or things which I find fascinating. No. If I do not see a profound solution to a problem, I don't write about it, because it becomes an open-ended text, right? People begin to say, oh, so what's next? So I sort of make my book a closed loop. Right? I write about a problem and I propose a solution which I think can go in tandem with that problem. So that's why most people refer to me as a transformational author. In terms of the impact which you've talked, which you've asked about, in these writings that have actually gone global, a lot of people are looking at it, and a lot of people are asking, so what next? You've raised these issues to the public space, and a lot of people have actually come to see how intense or how those problems have actually, or how deep-rooted they are. So what's next? Honestly, what I really want to do is to get people also to look at the solution side of it. We've talked about it for so long. It's been happening, but how do we resolve this? And resolution is not a one-man's thing, right? We have to come together to resolve or to seek ways to resolve this issue. And one of the things I see is that most times we jump into things without getting the fundamental training we need on certain subjects. And those subjects could be very sensitive. We have people being rolled into leadership roles and they are not actually properly trained, right? You could grow up in a house, such as the families we come from, 5 brothers, 8 sisters, and you feel, oh, since I'm the firstborn in the family, that makes me a leader.
Yes, yes.
I am the leader, right?
Yes.
So, and in fact, in the Senate, in my home country, we had one of the senators actually, I think he made an announcement that he's having, 20-something children, right? And he was so proud to say these are his 5 wives and 20-something or 30-something children, right? To him, he's a leader because he's leading the number of people he's just mentioned. So, but to me, fundamentally, these folks need to be trained because some of them do not know the sensitivity of the offices they hold. They need to be trained. So
Yes.
again, I'm looking at sort of an academy, right, where we can actually bring our leaders on board and actually make them learn, like, unlearn some of the things they had. So
Yes.
that's the purpose of that holding place, right? So the impact of all of these things would be actually how we can get to a place where we sort of set up an academy, which is what I'm really looking at, and make them unlearn the things which they came with and begin to learn the things which the people need as a country. So until we actually move from that place where we were to the place where we want to be, things will become or will still be challenging, right? So the book has made tremendous impact. It's opened people's eyes and it's gotten people to ask questions. And then people also look at the solutions which I profess and say, wow, this looks good, but only Darlington cannot do it. This is a collective effort. We need to work together. So no matter the contribution you make, it adds up to the whole thing itself, which is why we need a collective effort to fight this menace we're seeing in the society.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you made such a wonderful point in talking that, people, they do these things and they feel like this makes me a leader. Yeah, I was told this makes me the leader. No, it doesn't. And there's so many characteristics, so many things that you talk about training. There's so many things that you need. You lead a house, but can you lead a nation? And so it's so many things that you need, so many components that makes, you could be a leader, but are you effective in your leadership? And so it's so many components that kind of come together to make you an effective leader. So saying that this one thing makes me a leader that's not going to stand. That's not going to hold much weight. And so I want to ask you, I know you always doing something. I know you're always busy. So are there any projects or any other initiatives that you're working on? Any other books?
Very good question you raised. Yes, I'm always working on books because again, you see, sometimes people write about something they've well thought out. That's not the case with me. I see a problem, I talk about that.
Yes.
And sometimes I may see a problem, but I haven't gathered enough data or enough, data on that problem, which may delay my writing on it, which is what has happened. So I do have lots of other books in the pipeline. I'm looking at 1 or 2 more books this year, right? But again, it's not just about Nigeria. I'm sort of moving outwards because I'm a risk management professional. So I have some books I'm writing on the risk management topic itself. We've also seen this pandemic that has lasted for this long. So I wanted to really study it because this is also an area of specialization for me. I do a lot of things, especially as it relates to resiliency planning. So I have gathered enough information, and I've also studied the patterns of things, right? As a researcher, all I needed was time. So I think I have gathered enough to actually showcase what will make a very good read, especially when it comes to pandemic planning. So that's one of the things in my pipeline.
Awesome stuff. I want to thank you for joining us today. Thank you for giving us your time, your knowledge, your insight. Is there any additional comments you would like to add?
Sure, yes. Again, I really want to thank you, Deidre. Thank you very much for lending this platform to me so I could actually air out some of the things which I think we all need to know about. Again, it's your time, and I know you're also a busy person, but thank you so much for for playing this
I get it from you.
So again, thank you so much for playing this role. But again, I've spoken on different talk shows, and my stance has always been one that there is light at the end of the tunnel. I think collectively we can make an impact. It's just worse if we don't say anything. But again, when we begin to action on those things, then there will be a difference. So that is what I am always pushing for, that we shouldn't give up. We should do the best we can in the little spheres that we occupy. We should do something because collectively it will produce results which we never could imagine. But again, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much. And I just want to end on a little bit of inspiration, because you touch a little bit of inspiration. You touch a little bit. And you talk about coming out of chaos, your country coming out of chaos. But what motivated you is you maintain a level of positivity.
That's right.
And so for anyone, I mean, I come from a tiny island. I come from the Bahamas. But can you tell us, even coming out of those situations, you coming from a place of conflict, I'm coming from a small island, but you still can make an impact. You still can make an impact in seeing positivity out of difficult situations. You still can make an impact. And I don't know if you want to share any motivational, because I know you started off with seeing positivity in spite of what you may have saw around you. So I don't know if you want to add that last word.
Absolutely, Deidre. Thank you. Just like I had mentioned to you, I come from a society where, because of the chaos, because of the disorganization, because of everything happening around you, you begin to think those things are normal, right?
Yes.
So coming out from that environment and mixing up with other people made me realize that what I felt or what I saw or thought was normal isn't actually normal, right? So again, we need to give ourselves the room to actually make that judgment call, to say, hey, wait a minute, which do I go for? Right? So because what you've learned as being right in your culture may not actually be right in another person's culture. But you have the opportunity to weigh things and say, what makes sense, right? So I come from a society, and this is infectious, because almost the whole of Africa is saying this, where people actually feel that being corrupt is a shortcut to getting you to a better.
Yes.
So to them, they're fine. Mm-hmm. So to them, in fact, it's termed being smart.
Yes.
But that is not being smart, because there is a punishment or there is judgment attached to it, right?
Yes.
So you leave that environment and go into other environments and you display that smartness, you get punished for it. So that's the side of the fence they do not see, right? So again, it's giving ourselves the opportunity to sit back, analyze things, and say, hey, what is actually right? What is right? Is something of which, if we could do, and the youths of today and the folks that are governing our countries, if they could actually sit back and do this analysis and say, wait a minute, everyone does this, but is it right? Should I be doing this? Is it right? So we don't give ourselves the room to sit back and, sort of analyze things. So to me, that's something really worth the while if we take those into consideration.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Akaiso, for joining us today. And thank you for sharing those profound words, sharing your books, your author, your researcher, you're all around wearing many, many hats. You got many hats to wear. So I want to thank you for sharing your time with us today. And so I don't know if you want to share any pages, or I know you talked about you can pull that information down as pertains to your books off of Amazon, but So I don't know if you want to share any other page.
In fact, let's see. I think it's easier, right? I don't want to emphasize on one of the pages and then folks go to that. And, I want you to explore those reads, right? Explore them. Ask yourself, what is this about, right? Farming with guns.
Yes.
How do people farm with guns, right? Because, when you go in with this inquisitive mind, it helps you to gain more knowledge-wise. But again, aside from Amazon, you could get this on Goodreads. You could also get all of my books on Barnes & Noble. You could, in fact, you just Google me or Google these books. It should pop up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
But one
I
of the
found
things I
them.
also suggest is when you go through my books, always look for the page that says about the book.
Mhm.
Right? About the book will give you some sense of what you are about to embark on in terms of reading the book. So always look at the about the book page, because it provides you a condensed rough cut of what the book entails.
Awesome. So thank you. We
Thank
have
you
come
so
to
much.
the end of our session.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you again.
Thank you. I want to thank our viewers for listening in. Like our page, Can We Talk? You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. We're on a few social handles, so you can follow us using the social handles that we've indicated on our page. So with that, we've come to the end of our session. We thank our guest, Dr. Darlington Akaiso, my mentor. Thank you so much. So with that, we'll end the session, and Can We Talk?
Thank you very much.